You know what time it is.
Give me the green light, cause I'm ready to go. Let's have a good time. Let's go. What you waiting for?
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Sparklabs Demoday 8, and I'm honored to be here. My name's Teddy Z, and the reason I'm so honored to be here is because of this gentleman to my left, who I had the good fortune of working with or for many years ago when he was the co-chairman at Sony Pictures Entertainment. And I'd like to tell you that this man is truly one of the few Renaissance men that we have in America today. He is an author, he's a full professor, he is so curious and so inspirational in so many things. So he's into film, music, television, live events, esports. He's the owner of the Golden State Warriors in the NBA, the Los Angeles Dodgers, Major League Baseball, League of Legends esports team. He's also just sold his company, Dick Clark Productions, to the Chinese for a very large sum of money. So it's my pleasure to welcome Peter Guber.
Hey, thank you.
I really couldn't do him justice with my introduction, and you all, I hope, had read the program, but Peter is just a hit machine. From Batman to Midnight Express to Flashdance to the Dodgers to World Championship Warriors, and he has so many hits. Peter, I want to know, given your illustrious career, what do you consider to be your biggest accomplishments? And maybe even more importantly, what is your biggest failure? What have you learned from those experiences?
Well, hopefully you always learn something from everything you do. You're curious and continue to learn. I think that's how you grow. But I learned more from my failures than from my successes, actually. I used to say that success has many fathers and failure is an orphan. And the reason is that you really learn from the pain. So my biggest failure was I worked for a long time when I was the chairman and CEO of Sony. We didn't have electronic distribution in the company. We had theaters and music and film and television. And we were really challenged by that because all of our competitors, Warner's and Fox and Paramount, they all had big electronic distribution. So I set out to buy a big American network, NBC, and got thwarted in that because the government said a foreign company, Sony was owned by Japanese, obviously, couldn't own an American network. So we were really in difficulty, and serendipity happened. I happened to notice a sign one day while driving along in Southern California, Prime Ticket, and they owned the media rights for the Lakers basketball team, and also they owned the rights to the Kings, a hockey team, and several big college football teams, amongst others. And I thought that was a good footprint, so I set out to buy the media side, and they said, no, you have to buy the teams too, because you couldn't separate them. Well, trying to explain to Japanese, to Akio Morita, why hockey was a good investment, that's a challenge. Any of you who've been to a hockey game, you'll understand that. He didn't like the food most of all. And all the way to the end, we negotiated for a year, worked on it very hard. I really wasn't interested in sports. I was interested in the media right for it, but I became interested in it. And got all the way to the end and executed all the documents. And 2 days before the agreements to be signed, it was 11 o'clock at night in my house, and the phone rang. And when the phone rings, you know, the old-fashioned phone sits on a thing, you pick it up. And it was that kind of phone rang, and it was Bruce McNall, who was the owner of the hockey team, Kings, a big team in NHL, said, I can't sign the last agreement. I'm going to jail. I'm being indicted by the federal government. And the whole deal fell apart. A year and 3 months of work. And I said, never again. I'm done with this. I'll never do it again. And that was my biggest failure. It was very painful. You know, I had thought it all out. I knew what I was going to do. I had it all planned out. But God had other arrangements for me.
So after that failure, you said, never again will you ever buy a sports team?
Right. I just didn't think that I was going to do that again. And then the biggest accomplishment, the other side, was buying a series of sports teams to put together a combine, if you will, a Keiretsu of sports teams. And I set about doing it and had failure along the way. Every one I went after. I went after the Miami Heat with the biggest coach in the world, Pat Riley. Got all the way to the end, and the owner's son bought it in. I went to buy a big baseball team in Northern California, the Oakland A's. Sat with Moneyball leader Billy Beane. Made a whole deal with him all the way to the end. Commissioner said, can't approve you. I went, when Frank McCourt had the Dodgers, he wanted to partner up. I got all the way to the end. He said, I'm going to make my wife my partner. So I failed. But I learned all the way along what was necessary. Not merely determination, but focus and clarity and being able to clearly define how to take the dream, give it a time limit, and make it my goal. And I built all these enterprises into one sports entertainment company.
Peter, when I told some friends that I was coming here, so many people came out of the woodwork and said that you had been their professor at UCLA, that you had inspired them to dream big, that anything was possible. So I ask you today, who has been your biggest influences in life? Who inspires you?
Well, a lot of people inspire me in different ways. Sometimes it's bits and pieces. Sometimes it's whole careers. Sometimes it's a deal or a conversation or an interaction. But I would say that two fundamental people really gave me epiphanies, large inspirational navigational stakes. One was Akio Morita, who was the founder of Sony. And he really shaped my view of how to be opportunistic. And it changed my whole perspective on it. Can I share it with them? He said, think of yourself as a fisherman. If you're a normal fisherman in the old days, you knew what kind of fish was in the lake. You knew they ate worms. You dug up the worms. You put them on the hook. You put the hook in the water. You lit the barbecue. And you caught the fish. That was the way you did business 35, 40 years ago. You knew what was there. You knew just about how to get them. You had to be patient and not necessarily risk averse, but you had to be necessarily more patient than anything else. And then what happened is the world changed, because what happened after the 60s and 70s and the 80s, the world started to change because change started to change. Change was no longer linear, it was more spatial. And so you had to be a different kind of fisherman. And then again, more recently, change really changed. The rate of change became breathtaking. And so what he said to me back then was, you have to fish differently. You have to read the river. Read the opportunity, read the space out there. You have to see what the fish are eating. Then you have to learn how to tie the little fly to make it the talent to make the fish want it. Then you have to have talent to cast it into a particular place where the fish may be located. And then you have to be patient. And then when you feel the tug of that fish, you don't try to pull it into him in order to cast your life for the future. You allow yourself to be pulled to it and trusting that you'll have the skill and talent to do it when it pulls you there. Because the future doesn't reveal all of what you need to be successful with its opportunities. So for me, it's always been listening to that idea and being trusting that in the journey I'll find out what I need, and the opportunity I'll need, what relationships I'll need in order to execute and be successful. So that was one thing that really inspired me and stayed with me. And the second person that really influenced me was Nelson Mandela.